Okay, so for this one, they want us to draw a graph of that function. How we can do that? By first clicking on the center of the horizontal and vertical asymptotes, and then clicking on one additional point anywhere else on the graph. Okay, so this seems probably pretty weird when you first look at it. So they talk about horizontal and vertical asymptotes. Let's start there. So if I have this function y equals, remember f of x is just y, negative x plus 2 over x plus 2. And I want to find the horizontal asymptote first off. So remember the notes. Let me go back down and grab the notes for you. The exam 2 notes, there they are. Exam 3, sorry, we're on exam 3. So the exam 3 notes, finding horizontal asymptotes. How do you do it? N is the numerator power, highest power, D is the denominator highest power. If they're equal, if N is greater, if D is greater, okay. So, okay, what's the highest power? What are the powers? Well, this is a 1 power, and they both have invisible 1 power. The numerator and denominator powers are equal. They're both just 1, aren't they? It's just x to the first power, x to the first power, right? Just x to the first power, x to the first power. Okay, well, what do you do in that case? When they're equal, the horizontal asymptote is y equals a over b, where a and b are the numbers in front of the highest power terms, top and bottom. Oh, so then you got to grab the numbers in front. What are the numbers in front? Well, there's an invisible 1 and 1. When there's no numbers in front of an x, it's just 1. So it's y equals a over b. In other words, negative, well, careful, it's negative 1 over 1. That's an important difference. It's not just 1, it's negative 1 on the top, because there is a negative sign in front of that x on the top and nothing in front of the x on the bottom, so that's 1. So negative 1 over 1, so that's y equals negative 1, right? 1 divided by 1 is just 1. Negative 1 divided by 1 is just negative 1. So the horizontal asymptote is y equals negative 1. That here's the y-axis, here's the x-axis. So that means right down here at y equals negative 1, right, going through the y-axis. See how I went through the y-axis right there? Let me help with that. Right here at negative 1, I go through the y-axis. So that's where the horizontal asymptote is. Now, where's the vertical? How do we find, because they also spoke of the vertical asymptote. So how do I find a vertical asymptote? Well, vertical asymptotes, denominator equal to 0, ignore the numerator. Set take denominator 0 and solve, ignore the numerator. Okay. So it just has to do with the denominator. So I go y equals negative x plus 2 over x plus 2. And I grab just the denominator equal to 0, and you solve. So you just write x plus 2 equals 0. So what about the top? Ignore. It has nothing to do with the top. Subtract 2 from both sides. It cancels out. So x is negative 2. So, okay, so that means right here, hitting the x-axis at negative 2, it goes, there's the vertical. So here's the vertical, and here's the horizontal asymptotes, right? We found those using the notes. I found the horizontal and vertical asymptotes. Again, the horizontal is just highest power in the top, highest power in the bottom. If they're equal, it's just a over b, where a and b are the numbers in front of the highest power term. So it's negative 1 over 1, y equals negative 1. So y equals negative 1 goes through the y-axis at negative 1. There it is. And then the vertical asymptotes are denominator equal to 0. So I grab just ignore the numerator, grab just the denominator, solve it. X is negative 2, goes to the x-axis at negative 2. This is the x-axis, negative 2. Draw that line, okay? So now the center of them is right here, isn't it? At back 2 down 1. See what they say? By clicking the center of the horizontal and vertical. Okay, the center is that point right there. That's like the center of the crosshairs. The center of the 2 asymptote lines is at back 2 down 1, isn't it? Back 2 down 1. So click there first. It sets up the center of the asymptote lines for you on the graph. And then it says, and then clicking on one additional point anywhere else on the graph. One additional point. How do I get one additional point? Well, one additional point you can just plug in. Remember, anything that makes the equation true is going to be on the graph. So what was the equation? Minus x plus 2 over x plus 2, right? That's just grabbing the original equation right here. Okay. One additional point, which means you can plug in anything. Oh, anything? Yeah, anything. How about I just make x 0? How about I just plug in, because that just seems easy, 0. So I just plug in a 0 there and a 0 there. What does y equal? Minus 0 plus 2 over 0 plus 2. So y will equal, that's just 2 over 2. So y equals 1. So in other words, that's the point. Over 0 up 1. Where did I get? Because I plugged in x0, and that led to y1. So that's x0, y1. That's the point 0, 1. Now, I didn't have to plug in x equals 0. I could have plugged in any number. I just thought 0 seemed easy. So I just did what was easy, because they said any one additional point anywhere on the graph. So when they just want any one point anywhere on the graph, just plug in 0 for x, because that usually is easy. And I got y equals 2 over 2, which is 1. So 0, 1. X is 0, came out with y equals 1. So that means over 0, up 1 right here. Over 0, up 1. So if you click that, what you'll get is you'll get the graph. And the graph will look something like this. It'll go through that 0, 1 point, over 0, up 1. And let me see, and it'll show up over here too. And it'll be close to those asymptote lines. See this asymptote line? That'll guide the graph up and down. This asymptote line will guide the graph right and left. So that's what will happen. So all you have to do is first click on the center of the two asymptote lines. I found that by finding the horizontal and vertical asymptote lines right here and here. And then one additional point. And I found my additional point by just plugging in anything. I plugged in x to 0 because I thought that'd be easy, to the original equation, solved for y. Y came out 1, so 0, 1. So I just clicked on 0, 1. So first click on the center, then click on 0, 1, and boom, boom, it makes the graph for you with the two branches fitting the graph. There we go.